we have finally got some insight on what happened to the kickoff and why the original, the main, well, not the original, but the main, the most known group of people, the main stars of the show disbanded. Well, from one of their perspectives anyway. And it is one of the main perspectives that I would want to come out, because it is someone that I've had public disagreements with over how situations have been dealt with. Obviously, if you go back about a month now, I made a video on the downfall of True Geordie. It's my most viewed video on the channel. It's not my best video by any means. I actually don't like that video. I can watch a lot of my videos back, but I can't watch that video back. I really don't like that video. I think it is the production of it's terrible. It's awful. But anyway, Laurence commented on that video, and me and him had a bit of a disagreement, a bit of a Barney, if you will, about how a certain situation involving him and Jackmate was dealt with, right? And that is the only time I've ever seen Laurence talk about that situation, his experience with that situation. That is the only time in these comments that he left on my video. And obviously, when you're reading a comment, it is difficult to pick up on tones and how people are trying to come across, because you can't hear the tone in their voice, you can't see their mannerisms, etc., etc. So, you know, I read all of that, and, you know, I still disagreed with him. Like, I still held the same points, and I still do on that situation anyway. But it was very nice to see him come out and in his interview with Mark Goldbridge and talk about what happened with the kickoff. And I sat down to watch the interview, and I was like, I'm going to make a video on this because, well, me and Laurence have had a public disagreement, but I consider myself someone that has integrity, and I strongly believe what I believe, and I went into it going, I'm going to make the video whether I agree with him or not. And I agreed with a lot of what he said, and I thought he showed himself in a positive light, which made me want to make the video more, because I don't want everything I say on certain individuals to just be in one narrative. Well, unless it's positive, I would prefer to only speak about people in a positive sense. But you know what I mean. Like, I've made videos, the video on Fogden, I've made the video on True Geordie, where I was quite negative, and I don't always want to be negative when talking about these people. So this right here is a perfect opportunity to show that just because I have one opinion on someone in a certain situation doesn't mean that I can't separate that situation to any other situation that goes forward. So yeah, let's get into the interview. I've got some notes jotted down that of just key things that he said in the interview, or I picked up on in the interview, that I'd like to discuss. And we'll look at the first one, where he says that he admits that he dealt with the joke that Brian made. That's what he referred to it as, so I'll refer to it as that as well. The joke that he made in poor taste, and he admits that he dealt with that wrong. That Laurence dealt with the situation wrong, and I will agree, he did deal with the situation wrong. And when I first saw it, I was just like, oh well, when my friends make comments like that, or if I make a comment like that, there is just a bit like it went too far. Me and my friends will usually call each other out if we make a comment like that. But then I watched the interview, and he said, yes, I should have done it differently, but it's difficult to do in that moment in front of while on live stream. And I was thinking to myself, is it that difficult to do it in the moment? Because as soon as the comment will leave my friend's mouth, I'll pull them up on it and be like, no, you can't say that. But then I did think, I took the context into the situation, put the context into the situation. I thought, would I be able to do that on live stream though, where I've got an audience? Because sometimes when you have that conversation with your friend or a person after they've made a comment like that, it can get awkward. There can be a level of tension, and you really want that for the whole world to see? Do you really want that awkward moment, that uncomfortableness of the conversation to be public? Maybe not. I probably wouldn't. So yes, if one of my friends said something that Brian said in private, I would probably pull them up on it straight away. On a live stream, I might not be able to do that. So, I will give it to Laurence there. That is definitely a fair point, and I definitely do sympathise with him and agree with him there that yes, he did deal with it wrong, but it was a difficult situation to deal with given the actual context that the statement was made in. The next one says that he, going back to that, is like he all admits that he just wanted to move past the comment because it was a difficult thing to address, which again I understand. Like when someone says something like that, and especially to him, where it could hit home personally because of his family ties. When someone says, like, makes a comment, like a comment like that exact comment would probably offend me, not because I'm of that religion, but because I am from a part of the world where that is what a lot of people of my background would believe. So I would definitely take offense to it, because it's not just those religious people that are put into those stereotypes, it's also people from just that ethnic background in particular, and I've been thrown into that stereotype before, and it's not a nice thing to have be said about you. I'll be real, but yeah, and I would probably just want to move past it and just forget that it was said, because sometimes it is just, like I mentioned a minute ago, it's just an awkward conversation that you don't want to have happen, and sometimes it is easier to just move past things. And again, probably in that situation, it probably wasn't the best. It did need to be aired out. He did need to take accountability straight away and be like, I'm sorry if I offended anybody. I didn't mean to offend you, but obviously just because I didn't mean to offend you doesn't mean I haven't offended you. So yeah, maybe he should have said that. But again, it was something difficult to tackle, and the more and more I look at the situation, my views do change a little bit, especially when I've done a few live streams now, and I haven't said anything crazy on live stream, but like I have realised I do need to be a bit more reserved, because I can't edit it out, because even if there's one viewer or 100,000 viewers, that video, like, someone has seen you say that, and there is evidence of you saying it, there's a record of you saying it. So especially since I've started doing live streams more, I thought about the situation, looked at the situation from different sides. I do sympathise with Laurence a bit more now, on how he handled the situation. And yeah, it wasn't a great situation for him to be put in. Brian did put him in an awful situation. Yes, maybe he didn't deal with it the best, but there wasn't much he could do. He's since rectified that decision. That's really all that matters, that both of them have been able to rectify what they did, and hopefully something like that doesn't happen again. But these are the interesting ones, because we're now going to move away from what Brian said, because what Brian said is what he said. Is it what he believes? Who knows? Probably not, but it was a joke he made in poor taste. Let's move on to my next one, which is how Laurence thinks that the club boys were always going to do that, and that was the perfect time for them to disband. It gave them a reason to disband, and that does make sense. That does make a lot of sense, and I can understand why he sees it that way, because that's the same way I see it. That's the same way one of my friends sees it, that me and him have spoke in depth about this conversation a lot. His name's Joe. You would have seen him comment, if you read the comments on the True Geordie video when me and Laurence were talking, he comments on there, this is a situation that we are both quite invested in, and I've spoken about at length before. We've always thought that these Adam, McCullough, Rory Jennings and Laurence Bouvier were all mercenaries, and they all sort of were in it for themselves, which is fine. You're allowed to be in things for yourselves, but yeah, and him also saying that that's the way he sees it. It's nice to see that me and him agree on something. Like, we looked at the situation the same way and had the same takeaways from it, especially seeing as he was closer to the situation. I was just from the outside looking in, and he was like, in the middle of it. Like, it is interesting that we had the same opinion on it. And he did also mention that there were no contracts, and that these boys weren't under contracts, and that so they didn't really get anything from building the brand, because they didn't have any stakes in the brand, and they were just getting paid to turn up, because they were friends and they all trusted each other. They trusted that they'd turn up. They weren't obliged to do it. They just did it because they were friends. And Laurence even admits that they probably should have done more to make them feel invested in the brand and feel like they were getting something from it. Because if you're given the opportunity to, let's say for example, you and your friends start a podcast. The podcast gets, it gets big, but only 2 of your mates have actual stakes in it, and the rest of you are just getting paid to show up. You don't even have to show up. You're just getting paid for your participation. And then you get the opportunity to, with the rest of your mates, the ones that aren't, like shareholders in the company, if you will, you will then get an opportunity to start your own podcast. You'd be like, maybe this might be better because I'm more financially invested in it. I'll be more, there'll be more incentive for me to work harder, to be better, because the harder I work, the better I do, the more money I get, the more exposure my brand gets. So I get why they did it. I get why the Club Boys did it. It's not a good look on them. No, it's definitely not. And I don't think it's ever been a good look on them. I do think what they did was wrong. Morally anyway, I'd say it was like, obviously there was nothing legal. They weren't contractually obligated to be on the kickoff, so they could do whatever they wanted, but it was a bit, I don't like to use the term, but it was a bit snaky, if you will. And I can understand why Laurence, when he said in the interview that he was hurt by it, and he did feel a bit hurt by it, I can understand why he was hurt by it, because I would be hurt if my friends did that. But at the same time, if I was working with my friends, I would always make sure that there's a contract in place so that there is no room for either me to go, oh, don't need you guys anymore, bye-bye, or them to just go, oh, don't want to do this anymore, bye-bye. Like, I would make sure there's a contract in place so everything is fair and we're not just working off of like trust, because it's all well and good to trust your friends. You should trust your friends, but there should always be, especially in business, there should always be a third party factor in how your business is conducted. And so they definitely should have been contracts, I think. And obviously pay has always been an issue with the kickoff. Obviously that's why Hugh Wizzy left, like back in the day, OG kickoff days. Hugh Wizzy obviously left because he didn't feel like he was getting paid enough. So clearly pay has always been an issue with the brand. So that was probably something they should have looked at and been able to sort out. But here we are. Anyway, what else have I got written down here? I have, this was actually an interesting one. This was something I found very interesting at the time. Laurence said that him and Brian didn't really have the strongest relationship at the time, and that they didn't they hadn't done the best maintenance on their relationship, and they hadn't, I don't really know what the best way to put it is. Like, if you have a friend and you have a bunch of disagreements and you just keep letting it slide, at some point you're just going to drift apart. But if you talk through your issues, sort things out, be like, oh, I don't like this, I don't like that, then it builds the bond stronger, the relationship stronger, because you can talk about things. And from what I got from what Laurence said, because when listening to it, the only way I could make sense of it was by putting this situation as me and one of my friends. So the way I see it is, him and Brian they both got really busy. Laurence had just had a child. Brian was busy with obviously work. Laurence was busy being a father and also having work. So they were very busy, so they didn't have time to talk about things. And with them not having time to talk about things, it put strain on the relationship. So when these comments were made, when this comment that Brian made on the live stream was made about Andrew Tate, he didn't think that their relationship was strong enough to withstand the backlash, all of the character assassinations that happened, all of the news articles, all of this and that, all the cancelling and stuff. He just believed that their relationship wasn't strong enough to withstand it, and that's why they had to step away from things as a relation, from a friend relationship and a business perspective as well. And another thing I do want to comment on while we're talking about how they reacted to the whole situation is, Laurence said that he doesn't like the idea of people saying, of course he had to leave the kickoff. He has a Muslim family. Of course he'd be offended. Of course he has to leave. And I can't remember if I said that exactly, but I mentioned that point in my video. So if I did quote that and say that, then Laurence, obviously I do apologize. If you don't like that you don't like that assumption, and that I probably shouldn't have made that assumption. No, but it was just at the time what made the most sense in my head. So Laurence, if you are watching, I do apologize for making that assumption. Obviously I shouldn't have jumped to that assumption, but that was just the assumption I came to. So again, we all make mistakes, and I'll happily own up to that mistake and say that, yeah, I probably shouldn't have said that, but if I did say that, I do apologize. But yeah, I think that's all for the notes I had written down. But another thing that I find very interesting, and this is because I had the conversation with my friend Joe about this before it was even mentioned, but Mark Goldbridge said at the start, and it's kind of what the whole interview is titled around and based around, Laurence is the loser. Laurence lost. And that is true. He did lose in this situation. He doesn't have his brand that he can do brand deals with the club, for example, with like Rory. They do brand deals and stuff. They get their brand deals. They get their money for it. And Laurence even says that when he looks at the club, he does miss like getting brand deals and being able to do stuff with brands. And obviously he helped work to build up the True Geordie podcast, the Kickoff, etc. He doesn't have that anymore. That's all Brian's. And again, he also says that he's not salty about that because he was always helping Brian build his brand, and he always knew that stuff was Brian's brand. And he even said when naming the podcast that Brian wanted to call it the True Geordie and Laurence podcast, and Laurence said no, it should be your podcast, your True Geordie is your podcast. So obviously he spent a lot of time working on Brian's brand, and obviously he doesn't have that anymore because they don't have a relationship, that being friendship or business. So he's now just Laurence Mckenna, and again his numbers aren't bad. His channel's not doing bad by any means. Obviously he's still still making a living, but he's obviously come out of this situation the worst, even though there is no winners and there are no losers in this situation. And I also don't think there's any rights or wrongs in this situation, because no one's in the right nor is anybody in the wrong in this situation. Because things aren't always black and white. There's not always a right and a wrong, and in this situation there isn't a right or a wrong. It's all just a very grey area where some people are right for some things but they're wrong for others, and vice versa. And the only thing that can actually be concrete said is that Laurence is the loser, unfortunately, and that he has come out of things the worst. And again, he's not at rock bottom, he's still got a career, but it is sad to see that he has come out of it the way he's come out of it, and he doesn't have like he doesn't have any of it anymore, if that makes sense. Like the Kickoff and the podcast, Brian still has that. The group and the format of the Kickoff, the Club Boys have that, with them being the same cast and doing the same format just under a different name. They have that. Laurence is just back to being Laurence, and I can't imagine he minds that. He probably does like just being his own person, but like I would definitely, if I was in a situation, I would definitely feel a bit hard done by, I guess, if I was dealt the hand he was dealt at the end of this situation. But then again, life goes on, and he's just got to rebuild basically, and just play with the hand that he's got. And I do very much respect the fact that he's finally come out and spoke about it, because again, like I said, I was jumping to assumptions in my video, and yes, I shouldn't have jumped to those assumptions, but when dealing with a situation as public as this, I think it is always best to just come out and state what happened at some point, just to put the speculation to rest. Because especially with him not liking the speculation, and in his comments to me on my video saying that he doesn't like that people took Jack's side in that situation, then sometimes it is just best to come out with your side of the story, whether people want to hear it or not. It's best to have yours out there so that the speculation is put to bed. And I guess that's something he's done different this time compared to obviously the Jack situation, which me and him had our little conversation about. So, you know, again, it shows that he's learned and has realised that sometimes you do just need to address these things, because he even says that Brian didn't really want to talk about it and just wanted to let it pass, and so that the people trying to cancel him didn't win. And that's the complete wrong way to go about it, because when things like this happen and you do things like this, you do have to own up for your actions, and you do have to show that you, and if you are sorry, you do have to show that you're genuinely sorry, because there are too many fake apologies on this platform. And yes, some people are big enough to get away with these fake apologies and all that stuff, like Logan Paul, for example. Some of the stuff he's done, I doubt he's actually sorry, but he's big enough to obviously get away with it. And, you know, obviously he's owned up to it all now, written his wrongs, Geordie this being, and that's good, but he definitely should have just done that from the start and not tried to just ignore that it didn't happen. And I'm also glad that Laurence has finally come out and said his side of the story, so it puts the speculation to bed, because, you know, I was very curious of how things happened. Yes, like I said, I shouldn't have speculated and put those ideas out there. Although I'm not the first person to obviously have these ideas and put them out in the public, I shouldn't have spreaded them further, so I can only apologise for that. But yeah, I'm just kind of glad that we've got some more insight into the situation, and it's given me something to talk about. Yeah, I do have another video coming out soon, a video that I'm working on now. It's just in a bit of production hell. Like editing just is back and forth. The script, I keep needing to go back and like tamper with it. So yeah, it's taken a while, but it will be out soon. But yeah, I've been Nathan. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have, please like the video, comment down below your opinions on the situation, and who you think's, like, whose side you're on, really, even though there's not really sides to be picked, because there's not really an issue. But yeah, and also if you enjoyed, obviously subscribe, go check out some of the videos, some of my previous videos, go show your support there, and yeah, that's it really. Also, when you do subscribe, click the bell notification to be notified anytime that I upload a new video or go live. But yeah, that's it for today's off the cuff video. I've been Nathan, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.